again, just another simple thought from non-architects.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, I think, like the busiest non-highway road in Wisconsin. Is that correct?
Capitol Drive.
Yeah, probably. It's highway.
It is.
I think it's,
Oh, it's inside.
it's one of the busier arterial.
I believe it is.
Freeway.
Arterial.
street.
I think.
There's 40 something.
There's a lot of vehicles on it.
I have to go, but before I left, I just wanted to like sort of echo, and I'm sort of emphasizing this point because I was early on involved in the Beer Line Trail, and I remember some of the issues where we had Riverworks and some very good intentions and going forward before we had the project started, but it created problems for us later. And one of those was slightly inaccurate background drawings. So that's why I asked about like total stations and things. If you put anything down on your preliminary plan, then the city has to build around it later. I mean, the city, when they do background plans, are very accurate, and they go out and they identify every little tree and how big in diameter it is, and they use, GIS tools to do that and stuff. I don't know if you have so much of that, but if you can't do that with your preliminary plan and get that accurate, then I think you would want to be flexible because then when the city comes out and like, oh, hey, guess what? That fence for this guy's property is actually 10 feet further out than you have it drawn on your, what do you do now? So you just have to maintain a little bit of flexibility if you don't have super accurate background drawings for your preliminary plans. That's just something to keep in mind.
I have that section, Dave, all surveyed.
Did you? Okay.
Yes. So I've got an accurate, fairly
Okay.
accurate. It may extend 15 feet off of the railroad right away.
We just had some issues like where with the city where like Soup Design was, like, oops, guess what? Their fence is actually 15 feet further into, than the original drawing was. And I think the original drawing that the landscape architect made was based on property lines and things like that, and maybe some hand measurements rather. So, and then suddenly, oops, now what do we do? So it just raised the point, flexibility versus accuracy. Those are sort of two sides of the same coin, maybe.
And related to that, some of the opposition that you'll run into, which there will be. I know there already is. From people that express, you want to extend the Beer Line Trail, it's a stupid idea. Or, there's always,
Right.
whether it is or isn't, but it's their property, they're used to a certain thing, and so I think we've dealt with it pretty well on the Beer Line Trail.
Yeah, no. I mean, it wasn't.
But there was some.
Yeah, right, it wasn't all.
Well, I think that's the key moving forward. I mean, we personally, I like the vision, the community vision. I mean, I think that it's always, a great idea to try to provide greater connectivity to whatever enhancement we're putting forth. But, as we'll continue, and I've got to get maybe a little bit better handle on exactly where we're at in this process. There's a number of projects that we're trying to kind of get off the ground with some change in staff and everything, but I'll try to get a better handle on that and maybe communicate that to, I think there was I don't know if there's an email chain that I can grab from before and let everybody know about that. But at the very same time, there are a lot of other stakeholders that we need to be concerned with as we move forward with our project, and we need to make sure that we're not stepping on others' toes, and I think the first step from our part is really to get a handle on the timing and the land purchase and potential for the path construction, and I can forward that on to everybody.
Well, I apologize. I have to leave. Thanks, everybody.
So I think what we were thinking about doing, I talked to Mary Beth a little bit about this on Monday, is putting our granted dollars in a direction. And I had expressed interest, which I thought was a sort of win-win situation with Brian before, about trying to acquire a freight container. This freight container would both become a billboard for what we're doing. But it would also store the tires so that they weren't endangering, and it's sort of a long-term endangerment, but there's also sort of visual eyesore that no one really wants to see. Certainly Brian doesn't, as you know, it usually invites a whole truckload of shingles too. But like we thought that could sort of be just a foot in the ground as far as Be In Tween, which is completely unfunded, to sort of take that first sum of money and create something physical. It would serve as a storage for the tires as the tires began to become prototyped on the site. It would become like a shed of sorts. And then the architect in me, of course, wants to do something really interesting with it and maybe convert it into some sort of like cool mobile academic situation, as opposed to what you felt like you were in detention when you had to go to those in grade school, or at least.
Well, what about, and I don't speak on behalf of the bids, and there's 2 bids for Riverworks, but I mean, one of the things that I've been trying to encourage people to do is to come to me or to Daryl, my boss, with ideas related to the existing Beer Line Trail, because I think there's, I mean, we did a streetscape project where we spent $110,000 on putting some red pavement crosswalks. I mean, this is, again, me speaking personally, not on behalf of the bid. And then we're gonna spend $100,000 on harp lights, and I think with $200,000, God, we could have done some really cool stuff along the Beer Line Trail, which in my opinion it's a right-of-way just like Holton Street. They all connect. So what I'm encouraging is like people to propose cool ideas of generating activity or walkability or art or education. I mean, there could be community gardens on the Beer Line Trail. Obviously, that would have to go. We would pitch it. I mean, it's not our land; it's the city's. But I mean, we work kind of together on it.
Right.
But I mean, if someone was pitching something that was really well planned out and put together, beyond the theory, because our board's probably they're going to come into a meeting for an hour, something really concise. And then we pitched it to Mike with some plan of how it would be maintained. I think that's the other main thing. I would think the city would be open to some different ideas. Again, I'm not saying that idea in particular, I don't know, but, and again, I don't want to totally speak on behalf of the bid. I think sometimes with the bid, they might be confused by all of this talk when you're talking to board members who are business owners and they're not thinking about this stuff on a regular basis, on land use and gardens and those things, but I don't know, personally, as someone who works like directly under executive director, I think these ideas are really good. It's just how do you bring them to fruition? So I just encourage that. Like I wrote down your idea right away. I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
Mary
Great
Beth,
to be in touch.
she used the term edible landscape when we met on Monday. I was like, that's pretty good. Just because literally it's like you're maintaining, to some degree, a garden or something that would otherwise grow wild and become either a nuisance or something that is a headache for somebody. I know that between the city and Riverworks, there was some misunderstanding as to who was doing what and things like that. Both of you guys can sit back and.
Well, I think that's like the other thing is the maintenance, and we're on good terms with the city. It's just there was some miscommunication right away on both of our ends. But I mean, I think if there was something where someone would come in and take a chunk of the existing land and that would be maintained, where Riverworks wouldn't have to fork out money from our small budget and the city wouldn't have to, I don't see why either one of us, if it made sense, would object to that. I don't
And
know.
just to let you know, when I was talking about the edible landscape, the part you didn't say, I was thinking was, it's all gotta be raised beds, because that's rural.
Yeah.
So it's all gotta be done safely with anything edible. So,
Interestingly enough, railroad right-of-ways aren't the worst.
no, but
But
I'm pretty obsessive
yeah,
compulsive.
but-
Yeah.
but
It's
there
all
is-
good.
That's how- that one's pretty bad.
Yeah.
There's a policy,
Yeah.
just, there is a policy in place for what kind of gardening can be done on
Right.
city property,
Right.
and it is
we-
always
and
been.
we really wanna follow that.
Yeah.
If,
It's
you know.
good. It's good to, if I can jump in. It's good to have that context because I used to work at Growing Power, and I've seen the spectrum for them because they have an operation in Chicago at a housing project, which conveniently sits between 2 landfills. So the requirement requirements they had to meet in order to garden, which they did wanna go forward, was this much of clay. So I was like,
Okay.
so I was looking from that perspective, I was like, well, whatever the situation is here, we'll make it happen. But given that it's not, a landfill north and landfill south, that's a good sign. But I was, when I started to engage more with Keith about it, and I heard that the main issue that, or one of the bigger issues that had been seen at the beer line to the south was landscaping. I was like, well, that's great. We don't want anyone to landscape this because we would be happy to, with raised beds, with footpaths in between, essentially landscape ourselves by watering, harvesting, and maintaining the vegetables. So that's where really, I guess, all three, the Riverworks, the city, and the community that gets involved would kind of all benefit from this relationship.
Well, I'm just thinking it's a different outcome than what I was looking for from the meeting, but maybe what we need to do is come back with a plan and approach Riverworks and have it be a prototype for what could happen going north, and so that then people know what they're getting into, rather than it being totally theoretical, just on one small piece of it. It wouldn't be the entire sum of what you have.
Right, Beth, I've got
right.
a good piece of, you could
Okay.
use the prototype.
Okay.
And talking about clay, Nick,
Right.
if you visit our Glendale Yard site,
Uh-huh.
I've got 30,000 cubic yards of structural clay stored on site.
I was gonna say.
I'd love to find a home for
Is
it.
it-
Brian, a couple straws.
You do.
I was gonna say, that's
Yes.
not the clay from,
It's the clay
The
from the
Light
Light Horse,
Horse.
We,
it's the clay from
we
the
want
Light
to
Horse
talk.
project.
There's a lot of
The Light
vacant
Horse?
lots and
Light Horse is
foreclosed
Mandel
properties
project,
in
huh?
Cass.
That's
Sure.
right.
I gotta run, I'm sorry.
Okay.
This is a
well,
good
I'm gonna do some
That's
cards
great.
just in case anyone's ever talking.
well,
Sorry.
But we don't
I wish I could help you, Ryan.
I just hope we're gonna
Yeah, no, I
Friday,
Yeah.
tomorrow's
Yeah.
booked.
Friday sucks for me.
Talk to you next week.
I'll just talk to
Well,
you. I'll give you a
Do
call.
we have a
But
next
what do you think
step
about
that we
that?
want to take
Yeah,
from this meeting?
absolutely, it sounds like a great idea.
No, I think that, the more we can keep our discussion moving, I'll try to get a better handle on our project. But whatever we're doing, obviously, we don't wanna preclude, some other community improvement, that all of you are thinking about, or, others that can on this table,
Maybe
so.
Riverworks next.
Could I also,
It's a model, no, it's a model.
could I also suggest that on our end, we track
They
down
maintain city property.
a good, either from you or from somewhere else, plan of the existing condition and run it by you, and then we'll get together and talk about potential things to do, and we'll put that down on paper.
Okay, yeah, that's great, and I'm just curious, I think, is this Kovac or is this
Yeah.
Carl,
Thanks,
and Hamilton.
in Hamilton, okay? And has there been any discussion with them on
Yes,
that stuff?
There has.
And she's very supportive of the garden in Kilbourne Park.
And I spoke with Hamilton, and he's cautious,
Open to
cautiously,
the idea?
exactly.
Cautiously open.
Look
Yeah.
We are optimistic.
I'm,
Well, I think that, this plan, and I'm sorry, I didn't
No,
mean to
go
cut you
ahead.
off, but I was just saying, I think the more that you can, put some kind of conceptual plan together, I think it's a lot easier to communicate
Right.
those ideas to, those individuals as well, to build that buy-in.
Even following like those national standards, like if they're doing the path and moving
Well,
forward
the
with
thing with the national
scratching
standards, is I have to spend federal money on,
Right.
Yeah.
whatever I spend the federal money has to.
sure.
Yeah,
And that's
that's
really
it.
the bike path.
So I mean, as
That's
they
like-
conceptualize, yeah,
These
that's what
other
I'm asking.
ancillary things.
As they conceptualize that, just provide that space, and given maybe it's S-ing through and doing different shapes for like
The
other
only-
facilities in there than just a straight cut.
I mean, it's one thing we're gonna have to get our arms around is, community gardens and public right of way.
Well,
That's something totally new to us with regard to.
Yeah, I guess I don't know that it's new, I think there are,
Urban
I-
Ecology Center.
Yeah.
Kilbourne Park.
I mean, we,
That's counting.
That's
we-
not
Public.
public right of way though.
Right.
That
I think
is
there might be
really
some
state-owned by
examples
the
that we'll
state.
have to look
But-
into.
but
Wait,
Oakland Trail is not public right away?
That's county owned.
Yeah, sorry.
so, because this would be city owned, you guys don't have an experience with that?
Right, I mean, it's something that we'd have to figure out how to.
So it'd be one of those situations where you're setting
It's not
a
that we're
foundation,
opposed to it,
right?
it's
No,
just
no,
that, it's just
No,
a.
I think it would be
it's just a-
similar to
Right.
what the Urban Ecology Center has with the
Right.
county
Right.
on the Oak Cliff Trail. There'd be a similar
Right.
type.
Which says good things about this program, because you're in multiple different ways setting a new precedent, which only
and I just want
only
to say, I
empowers.
worked on that project, so, familiar with a lot of the issues there.
Good.
So, I want to thank you really
Yeah,
for taking
thank
the
you very
time.
much for your time.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. This is, it's really neat to see these kinds of
This is
things.
interesting.
So,
Project.
excellent. Very nice meeting all of you and.
Before everyone steps away, you know, I kind of wanted to say.
This is Marcia, I talked with her last week, she asked me to give you a formal letter for another project.
Oh,
Not
okay.
today's project.
Marcia.
Marcia, excuse me, Marcia.
Oh, okay.
Before everyone takes off, I just wanted to basically project where I'm at right now. I think I've got that plan that's pretty loosely set up. I've developed a budget, preliminary, of course. This has never been done before, but how it measures up against asphalt. And then those sort of numbers are just to hopefully get the city to say, well, you know, we're not gonna throw it out, you know, or it could be this ancillary access. But what is really important to myself is activating these people who get involved with Be-In-Tween. Because there's nothing worse than showing up for something and then, you know, realizing it was a waste of your time. In fact, then you stop doing things that are sort of active or pro bono, you know.
For what it's worth, one of our biggest challenges in the garden in Kilbourne Park is the wood chip paths between the raised beds. It's a constant hassle. We're adding landscape cloth, adding more layers of wood chips. That's cool. That's could be a great idea for an answer to the question of what to do between the beds. So,
And I'm also curious, just more out of curiosity than anything else. The crushed limestone, does that also meet federal?
No.
That doesn't. So like for the Drumlin Trail, it likely wasn't supported. I mean, obviously that wasn't city, so you would know. But
I'm not sure
Right.
how that was funded,
Right.
but
Because it's ADA, right?
do not
I think it's all in
believe that we
Right.
And
approve
I,
the Stone for trail.
Right.
I certainly, we're not closing the door on this idea, I mean,
Mhm.
but it just, you know, the bike path is one element of an improvement for this corridor, and, you know, it can be designed in a way to accommodate other things that
Right.
might take place in that corridor. And because of the funding, as Mike said, because of the funding, that one element is gonna have to meet some requirement that will
Right.
be approved by a different body than us.
Mm-hmm.
And so we, you know, we wanna be able to utilize that funding that we have, obviously,
Mhm.
to at least get us moving in forward and to some greater improvement, but ultimately, I mean, I think that there's a lot of opportunity, and it's really these other ideas that are gonna make this space a place to be, not just, you know, the bike path for bikes to ride to and fro. I mean, that's really not, that's not what we're trying to accomplish. I mean, there's a lot more that can be accomplished here.
Right.
And it takes people like you with the ideas and ultimately, you know, the energy to make those kinds of other kinds of things happen. So,
Mhm.
you know, I think that's what makes a project like this exciting.
Yeah.
It's not just a piece of asphalt that we're gonna put down, you know, for bikes to be able to get through, you know, from point A to point B.
But that'd be really cool when it's done.
Oh, yeah, it will be cool, I mean, it further extends it,
Yeah.
but, you know, it becomes just a plain landscape that you're riding through. This becomes a destination when you start doing these.
Yeah, and I think I'm a point A to point B kind of guy. So I had designed the plan with just like, you know, 3,500 feet, because it's a lot of work, you know, to be doing dipsy-dozy with all these tires. But again, that's really the nature of this material, and I think Steve brought up a great point where you could just come in. This is a very malleable, flexible, and easily replaceable, and potentially longer lasting element than, okay, I plugged a few more things there, but it could very well start to sort of meander, and then the city can come in and just blaze right through that, so that like it does offer the person who wants to not go back and forth on a Sunday ride on the existing beer line just to sort of get up to 20 miles an hour or something. At the same time, for those who ride mountain bikes or something, it offers an alternative, and as these things sweep in and out, thanks, that's a great idea, Steve, they could sort of contain different of these amenities or landscape, both native and edible.
Well, we're open to our discussions as we're developing our project, and, you know, we're certainly gonna, you know, we'll keep everybody included in that, so. I do have to leave,
Okay.
I really do apologize.
Is
I
it-
have to get out of here by 4:30, so.
This is maybe more for Brian or the alders people, but if we were to get a container, is there any preference of those at the table whether it was closer to Capitol? Because we could start at Capitol and then make it our goal to connect back to Keefe, or it's, you know, a little less busy, closer to Keefe and Richards. Is there any interest one way or the
I
other?
think that, if it, I think that comes down to maybe the alderman,
That's
whether
Brian.
Yeah,
they,
it's
they
really
want,
not-
whether they want something more visual or whether they're afraid of
Until we
having
own the
more
land, we
visual.
really don't have a say.
Yeah,
Yeah, I guess that's true.
yeah.
Details.
Yeah, I mean, that seems to be more of a community, you know, acceptance type of thing.
Right,
That
okay.
I wouldn't wanna speak on behalf of.
Yeah. Well, beyond, I think, what was a successful roundtable today, I thank you guys all for joining. I think what's really important is that it's a little bit more cemented now that you see some other faces that are embracing this, and as we are not Home Depot and we're not Goodyear, it is difficult for us as an unfunded organization to continue and I'm young at 31, but not young enough to be hauling all these tires. So if, you know, there are small relationships that you might run into, the spark is there. So please, if something comes along, remember Be In Tween and some of the conveniences and partnerships that could happen through that.
Well, I think, I mean, I have your email, so I'll certainly communicate back to you,
Okay.
just the project status and, you know, what, I guess, the schedule moving forward might be.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, at some point in time, I, you know, certainly want to, you know, that project to be kind of engaged with some of your ideas.
Okay, great, thank you. Now, is there a time that we want to set, like a month or two down the road, or?
Let me get a handle on that,
Okay.
on our project, and then we can maybe talk about when
Sure.
we get back together.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yep.
great.
Thank you.